Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Just Hoop Show. We're back for episode number 4. I am joined today by a new guest, a new face, not new to me, my good friend Franklin Ero. How are you doing today, Frank?
Not too bad. About to watch my boys beat the Arizona Cardinals today. So, the Brownies about to show up. Kyler Murray, I'm sorry, but Myles Garrett has your number today. It's about to be 4 sacks. I'm calling it now. Brownies are going to go 4-2. We will be tied with the Baltimore Ravens by the end of the day. The Chargers about to spank that ass too. So it's a good day to be a sports fan.
Hey, it's always a good day to be a sports fan as long as your team is winning. For real, to be honest. But so with the Browns, what do you think? Do you think they're going to be able to stop DeAndre Hopkins? That's literally the only thing I'm worried about.
I think he's going to cook. I think he's going to get 8 receptions, 112 yards, and a touchdown. It'll be like a 21-14 type game. It'll be all about defense. But, dog, that team is scary. They just got
you have
hurt.
One of the best edge rushes.
But the Cardinals team is scary for real. They got a lot of washed players that still hoop, if you know what I mean. They have players that 10 years ago were monsters, and they're still nice.
AJ Green and Hopkins, but Murray is he reminds me a lot of Russell Wilson. Yeah. Just the height, they don't have the same height, but he reminds me a lot of Russ. They're just dangerous on either side of the ball, whether they're throwing or they're running.
Not even that, but he's just got the swagger to him that you can trust him to get shit done. And this year he's shown that he's able to reduce the amount of turnovers that people had previously knocked him about. And just his ball IQ and awareness is ridiculous. I mean, seeing him evolve over the last 2 years has been great. Just going from a potentially bust of a number 1 pick to kind of this perennial MVP candidate. And so I love following his Instagram and watching his videos. His sensei shit that he does on his platform is amazing. So I'm a huge Kyler supporter, so we'll see what goes on tonight. But hoping my Browns get the win and it's a good game.
From one ball onto the other ball, the Big Baller brand has made a return with their brand after they took a couple of losses. After LeVar Ball lost his own sons in his own company, they have released 3 new pairs of shoes now. I can't throw them on the screen. You can search those up if you'd like. But there's 3 of them that retail at $695, and 1 shoe retails at $895. The I Told You So's. What do you think about these new shoes that LeVar Ball has dropped?
Much like most of LeVar Ball's business decisions since his kid's gotten drafted, I think this is trash. I think that Como de Garçon and Mason Margiela are going to have a conversation with him about IP. And just taking their IP for these shoes. I mean, they look like Vans and Converse crossed over, and you just let a kid with the crayon box just write all over them. They're not hard at all. Who's wearing these to the club? You wear these in front of the hose, and there's gonna be a lot of dry pussy in there.
Oh my god, man!
Nobody thinks these are hard.
You walk in there all fly, Louis V jean jacket, Amiri jeans, all types, and you got the Big Baller brands on. It's going to be a tough night. Listen, anybody I catch with these, you getting roasted. I mean, especially the I Told You So's, which, I mean,
Dog. It's bad.
I don't know, man.
The logo on the side is the toughest part because it's at least put a fly logo, not some it looks like it's a BLM, Black Lives Matters logo. That's how terrible it is, man.
I feel like he should have rebranded, right? Because it's the 3 Bs, but the 3 Bs only existed because you had Alonzo, LaMelo, Leangelo. Now you don't have any of them at your house or in your company. So, I mean, it's hilarious.
Letting that dude steal from his kids and his business is just ridiculous. And I think that if it's a sign of the good and the bad of LeVar, I think he's an absolute genius in regards to how he structured the lifestyle for his kids. But from a business aspect, I'm a fan of the saying that you do what you're good at and you stick in your lane and let people who are good at what they do what they do. And he's good at, the whole basketball side and development side. So he should have focused on that and brought in someone that he could trust and really understands the shoe business, and then bring in someone who has the understanding of the business world and collaborate. And instead he's trying to do this, jack of all trades approach. And, I like jack of all trades approach when it comes to learning and education, but when it comes to application, I very much would rather be the king of my craft and focus on my craft and then pay people to do the things I'm not a king at. And so he's just a clear example of, people reaching too far and getting burned by the pot. That's really all it is for me.
Yeah, and I feel like he has the revenue to go higher, like a ex Nike or at least a Converse design. Well, I mean, it does
Yeah.
look like he got a couple of old designers, the guys that didn't make the cut in the Nike camp and things of that sort. Because I mean, I just don't know when they threw this final product. Like, I want to see like their faces. Like, they all sit there like, that's the one. Like,
Dude,
no,
the,
man.
the only one I would wear is the red ones. I'll be honest. The red ones are dope. Like those are like lightweight decent, but there's not a lot of fits I would rock the red ones with. The ones that piss me off the most is this purple and blue. Like it looks like the scene from Vegeta or from Dragon Ball Z where like Vegeta's about to power up. It's like, dog, like, what are you doing here? It's like a Trunks. If Trunks threw up on a shoe, this is what it looks like. Like there's no like fluidity between this shoe and the next shoe. It's ridiculous, like what you can just come up with by just having money and thinking of some bullshit.
And the funny part too is the logo is like on different sides, but these literally look like shoes you can go to like Burlington or Marshalls or whatever, and those little $20 joint beaters you can buy. That's what these look like. But it's not even the shoe as much as the $695 price tag that leaves me
Wow.
like, what are you even doing? But on the topic of LeVar Ball, I do want to talk about at least there was one thing he did right, which was raise his sons into three great basketball players.
Dogs.
So I just want to talk about I just want to talk about the rise of the Ball brothers. We have Lonzo Ball, who's now in the Chicago Bulls. He just signed a big contract this offseason, 4 years, $84 million. He's obviously, some would say not, but I would say he's a top 10 point guard in the league, just his overall skill set. He averaged 14 points, 5 assists, 4 rebounds. He shot 41% from the field and 37% from deep. Alongside his younger brother, LaMelo Ball, is with the Charlotte Hornets. He's probably a top 15, top 20 point guard. He's the last rookie of the year that we just had. He averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, 43 from the field, and 35 from beyond the arc. And now LiAngelo Ball, I mean, we got no statistics on him, but he finally has a shot in the NBA, joining one of his younger brothers in Charlotte. So what do you think about the Ball brothers? Apart from their dad not having any type of business acumen, just as far as raising 3 NBA players.
I think once again, this is the good side of LeVar, the planning and execution. Everything that he tried to strategize from the inception of his kids sort of came into fruition, and his kids kind of ran with it. And I'm happy to see, their family succeed and do well. And I wish them the best of luck this season. Interesting to see LiAngelo get waived due to that 2-way contract, but I'm sure he's going to still be in the league, just in a similar facility to what his previous contract was. The one thing that's interesting for me is Lonzo. We were having conversations with my friends just about the fact that, Van Gundy really tried to have Lonzo Ball be a 3-and-D shooter. And that is not his style. I mean, you can tell anyone who knows hoops knows that Lonzo is a facilitator with a good shot. And his shot has really improved over the last couple of years as he's gotten more confident. He was just always shaky with his shot because I think he came in with a lot of this hype and he's constantly being broken down. And there's one thing that people don't really want to give Lonzo credit for is the fact that, I mean, he's been in the league for, I want to say 4 or 5 years now, and he's never had the same system or coach at any point of his career. Like, that's, to me, ridiculous. I mean, from his UCLA days till now, he's always had a different coach or a different system of playing, and he hasn't really had a consistent team. And it sort of reminds me of the conversation Karl Anthony Towns had during a press conference during the preseason, where he's like, I've had, this many coaches, I've had teams traded, or teammates traded. I've never had any consistency in my life. He's like, my coach died, my mom died. He's like, I'm constantly in a situation where I'm in like turmoil, just in a personal sense. And I'll get Lonzo kind of not in the same light, but in a similar light where he's never really had the opportunity to benefit from some stability or some consistency to really develop his game. Even when he was at the Lakers, he was a Lakers number 2 pick. So he was constantly being criticized. He had an absolute shit coach in Luke Walton. And, as soon as LeBron came, he was shipped out to New Orleans, where New Orleans was a very unstable environment just based on where they were moving and the direction they took, especially with drafting Zion Williamson, who has yet to really meet expectations in the same way, people expected Lonzo to. But now that Lonzo's in a system where he has two or three other, bona fide stars, and DeMar DeRozan, and in my opinion, um, Zach LaVine, he'll have the ability to sort of, lead in a role where he doesn't have to be the expected number one scorer on the team, but he'll have the ball in his hands and sort of try to make things work. I'll be curious to see how that works in regards to long-term success, because I do feel like the best strategy for me would be to have Lonzo on the field longer and come in with that second unit after DeMar and Zach LaVine, try and get some minutes. So, trying to set it up in the sense that, LaVine and DeRozan start the game out with the ball in their hands, sort of doing their own thing and trying to make things work. And then as they, go to the bench to get some rest, you just put the ball in Lonzo's hands, and you have a certified shooter in Kobe White to his side to free some space up for him. And obviously there's Alex Caruso. And then in regards to LaMelo Ball, that's that guy right there. There's not too many great things I can say about that guy without sounding like a dick rider. LaMelo is different. I mean, his entire aura is different. His swag's different. Just his play style is different. The guy plays what I like to call that wiggle. He's just like got that little shimmy to him. Like he's like a worm, just slips in and out of the cut. And so watching him play is exciting. I'm excited to see what he does this year, and if he takes that second year jump. I'm expecting the biggest growth from him to be in year 3, just because he's still getting comfortable to the league speed and just getting more familiar with his teammates. But I think that with what was showcased from him last year, there's a high amount of upside and expectations, and I think that with this, almost what I think is going to be a perennial conversation of, should people have taken LaMelo or Anthony Edwards first, is going to be a very interesting conversation. And so I think he's going to have a lot to prove year in and year out, just to himself and to the league in certain aspects, because he is one of those guys who draws attention, and he always delivers in regards to, just meeting the limelight and the show light and just, putting on, the best show possible. And I'm happy for him. They're bringing back Terry Rozier, Devontae Graham's back. We'll see what's his name, the dunker on the team, sort of make his return back into that 3-4 spot and really shine. I do think they need to address their bench concerns and bring in some real hoopers. I think that right now they're still a fringe team, in my opinion, just because they don't have a solid team. But it'll be something that they address over the years as they build out. But I'm excited for LaMelo, and I think he's going to average 27 and 6 this year. Just a quick shout out to him. I think he's able to hit those numbers and take himself into that top 12 point guards in the league conversation.
I totally agree with pretty much everything you said. Just to kind of go on top of that, I think that the Ball brothers have a very special ability to not just revolutionize the league as far as like the way we look at brothers. You look at the Holiday brothers, there's such a huge gap in between skill set between the brothers. Yeah. Drew and Justin is a huge gap. Yeah. And then Justin and Aaron, is a little bit of a bigger gap. Now, they're all good basketball players, but just as far as there's, I think Lonzo and LaMelo come a lot closer than people realize. And surprisingly, LiAngelo Ball is the last one to make the league, considering he's the one that has the most, I guess you would say, league-ready skill set, pure shooter, spot up, catch and shoot. He could do pretty much everything a shooter can do, and he never got picked up till about right now. Yeah. But just to go on top of that, Lonzo and LaMelo will probably end up being like top 10 point guards and maybe at one point top 5 at their position at the same time, simply just off skill set. If I remember correctly, LaMelo Ball averaged, I think it was 1.02 points per possession in isolation, which was league leading. So not by rookies. Everybody in the league, LaMelo Ball had more isolation points than. So you just see the dynamic of a taller point guard. He's 6'6". His wingspan is obviously the longest of any other point guard. Pause. And clearly he has, a skill set above his I guess you would say his draft classmates, other than, I would say Anthony Edwards, who we could make the debate on who's a better pick. I think Edwards was the safer pick at number 1, but I don't think we expected LaMelo Ball as well. Not the comfort in scoring, because the isolation is easy. He's the taller point guard. He's doing what Ben Simmons should be doing. Yeah. And then LaMelo Ball is his playmaking. I think that's a special part about Lonzo and LaMelo is they're probably two of the best playmakers. If there's the closest thing to Rajon Rondo, a Jason Kidd would be like Alonzo Ball, somebody who doesn't impact the scoreboard, like the stat sheet as much, but his imprint is on the game from start to finish, whether it's on the defensive end, whether he's facilitating, whether, now he's a shooter. I love how you mentioned the inconsistency in systems because that's Lonzo Ball's biggest, downfall was being in New Orleans, having two guys on his side, like one like a Brandon Ingram, mini KD, and having a Zion Williamson, and not getting the opportunity to run that offense. I mean, it's so distasteful from Van Gundy to have ever thought that you could turn a facilitator into a 3-and-D. Now he has a potential, but it's like his 3-and-D ability is here, and his facilitator ability is like you can't even see it on the screen. Yeah. So it's through the roof. And that's the special part is Lonzo's ability. You mentioned it now with LaVine and DeRozan not having to have the ball in his hands at all times. He can facilitate the offense and he can go play, 100% on the defensive end without having to worry about going on the other side and his coach telling him, hey, you need to score. No, he can defer that to a Nikola Vucevic, a Patrick Williams, you mentioned Kobe White. He can pass to a LaVine, a DeRozan. So obviously now Lonzo in Chicago, you could see the team so far, they're molding up to be a fantastic Eastern Conference contender. So I'm excited to see just what they're going to do this season. But LaMelo and I think LiAngelo isn't he's on a two-way? I thought he got signed. The G League now. Oh, he got waived. Oh, wow. Because he got signed and I sent it to you the other day. He got waived again. Man, the NBA moves fast.
So they waived him
because they want to retain his G League rights. I think he'll still be on a G League team this year. So we'll see. Okay. I do agree with you. He has the most complete game. I just think that incident he had overseas during college rubbed people the wrong way. Whereas Lonzo and Melo kind of did as little as possible to steal limelight in a negative way. And so when you're trying to assess risk, similar to what you said, Anthony Edwards was a safer option compared to Melo, but at the end of the day, there was no real negative knock against Melo. So when he was drafted, it made sense. And it was the same thing with Lonzo. But when you have this, almost cautious sense of, security around LiAngelo, you're thinking, how mature is this guy? How ready is he to come in here and work and put the effort in? You don't have those questions with the other two brothers. And I think that's what really knocked his draft stock and knocked him out of the conversation. Because if you watch his games, like they're all similar in regards to skill set and game level. It's just who got the opportunity and took it is kind of where I look at things. Because there was no real reason to draft LaMelo second based on his overseas tape. But it was just the fact that he had such a high amount of upside because you're not really like no one was sure about him. Like, let's be honest, like no one knew coming into last year that he was going to be that good. You just assumed he was going to be good. You just didn't know what the cap was. And I don't think that LiAngelo had that opportunity or had that fortunate sake because he had this negative knock against him where there was a proven downside and it was his possible immaturity. And so I'm interested to see how things go. And I think that the biggest thing for me with Lonzo is that there's going to be sort of this weight taken off his shoulder. He'll have, kind of like a free landscape to work things out in Chicago because, everyone knows that this is going to be a figure it out year for that team. What's their identity? What's their skill set? But the thing I do like seeing so far is that he's one of the best defenders in the league, in my opinion. And I think that with having DeMar DeRozan, another great elite defender next to you, it's going to be tough assignments for teams to score on this team. Like you're going to get switched on a lot. You're going to have people really run at you hard and play with a lot of energy and intensity. And I think that Lonzo is going to really benefit from the leadership of DeMar DeRozan because he's never really played with a savvy vet quite at DeMar's level and prestige. And so he had LeBron, but we all know.
I was just about to say, I think LeBron's a pretty savvy vet.
Yeah.
But that was a different situation because he was always going to get traded. So there was no real intuition or there no real reason to build a bond there. But it'll be interesting just seeing how things play out.
Curiously enough,
discussing these potential finals implications, I think it would be best to talk about a team that I currently have a lot of questions for, and they currently have one of my favorite players in the league. But I wanted your opinions on the long-term projections for the Portland Trailblazers.
Okay. Damian Lillard is easy, top 3 point guard in the league. Whatever order you want to do, my personal opinion, Stephen Curry, Kyrie Irving, Damian Lillard. Steph first, Kyrie, and then Lillard. That's just my personal opinion. So I hold Damian Lillard to a very high standard. I don't think holding Damian Lillard responsible for what's going on in Portland would be a fair judgment. Long term, I don't see Damian Lillard has shown his character, right? And that's the thing. That's where it becomes tough sometimes. Is a lot of players play that character, that demeanor of loyalty, and I keep it real, and all that jazz. Damian Lillard is that. So I believe Damian Lillard when he says he doesn't want to get traded, but I also understand. Well, I don't understand, but I could only imagine what it's like to be as good as you are in Damian Lillard and your team year in and year out just continues to underperform. And it's not like the Portland Trailblazers don't seed well. They make the playoffs and they do well enough to make, between the 1 through the 8th seed. But the issue is his sidekick is CJ McCollum. And while they are very entertaining, I've made the argument they're entertaining, but they do not result in wins. They don't result in playoff championships. They don't result in, just like true success. And that's not a knock on McCollum or Lillard. I just think that 2 small guards don't work. I think John Wall and Bradley Beal showed you that. They're great and they're entertaining and you love to watch them. You couldn't even use like a Stephen Clay because Clay is 6'7". He's much taller than McCollum and he's one of the best defenders in the league. So It's like 2 small guards can't really, like, you couldn't put another small guard next to Allen Iverson. It would never work. You can't put Damian Lillard next to Curry. As good as that would be, championship level, it would be a very, very long debate. So I think Damian Lillard should force his way out of Portland. I would wait till around the middle of the season. And I think Portland will eventually, there's so much skill coming into the NBA. Nowadays, players have so much deeper packages as far as point guards, do things they're not supposed to do, forwards, big men. So I think Portland and the NBA is in good hands in the future. But I think Portland is going to basically trade Damian and get themselves a bunch of picks and, future players to build around, and then trade CJ McCollum as well and just, start completely new. But if they don't, just to finish off, if they don't trade Damian Lillard, then you have to trade CJ McCollum. And please, for the love of God, if you're going to give him Ben Simmons, you might as well just trade Damian Lillard, to freaking the Shanghai Sharks or something. Because the guy, that's not gonna work. It's just, the pure honesty. You can't just throw a knot. There's a lot that you could. Here's the issue with Portland too. They have nothing to trade now. Like, I'm looking at the roster, and this is going to sound very disrespectful because I understand every single one of these guys can beat me in a one-on-one. But if I'm an NBA general manager, unless you're giving me Jusuf Nurkic, Robert Covington, or CJ McCollum, there's nobody on this roster that has like great NBA resumes and good NBA credentials other than Tony Snell. Tony Snell's biggest claim to fame is he had a game, he played a minute or like 20 minutes and didn't score a single statistic.
28
minutes, 0 stats.
For real, like, this is what Damian Lillard has to work with. They added this offseason Cody Zeller, Ben McLemore, Larry Nance Jr., Marquise Chris, Greg Brown III. I would have asked for a trade, even if I was in the NBA making millions of dollars. I mean, the GM isn't helping him, and the city isn't helping him. So long term, I think that we're going to be seeing them similar. You know what they're going to fall into? The LeBron after Lillard era, but I don't think it's going to be as bad.
Okay.
So I'm going to start this rant by
saying one thing first. I love Damian Lillard. He has forever been one of my favorite point guards ever since he came out of Weber State. That being said, run from the grind, Dame. It's time. You got to run from the grind. Like, get your family out of Portland, pack those bags, call the budget truck. I mean, get your shit out of there, my boy. It's time to go. They are victims to, and I hate to say this, but they're victims to shapeless basketball, in my opinion. I do hold Dame partly responsible for that because they should have identified that as a possibility of why they're not able to succeed at this level. One of the things that I look at, there's two things that really I fault, Dame and the Portland Trailblazers for, and it's one, that shapeless basketball. They don't really have an identity. When you look at that team, you look at Dame, and then it's a bunch of other players. You have CJ, who's a great two guard to play next to him, but they're not really known for any style of basketball. When you looked at the Warriors, they were known for a pass heavy, hard defensive team. The Spurs have their own identity. Even KD and the Brooklyn Nets right now have their own identity. They're a high octane offense with a slightly below average defense, but that's their identity. When you look at the Portland Trailblazers, what really jumps off the page at you as a unique feature of this team? They're not a really great defensive team, and they're not really a high octane offensive team. So, what is their brand? What is their signifying look? Even the Knicks were known as a gritty, hard-nosed defensive team this past year. They were one of the top 5 defenses in the league. That was a team that got put together off of one-year signings. Like, the fact that the Knicks could figure that out, contrary to their reputation, is just a sign of what the inaccuracies are for the Trailblazers. And then my second problem, and you and I have talked about this before, and you were kind of hinting on it in your point recently, but this Trailblazers team has always been a misfit team. It's a lot of guys that just come in from other teams and try and figure out what their niche is on the team. You saw that with Rodney Hood trying to get some hoops in the last few years. You're seeing that now with Larry Nance showing up. Patrick Patterson's still a solid forward, but doesn't really move the needle for me. Ben McLemore played well last year on the Lakers, but that doesn't really move the needle. Anthony Simmons, a great guard, but it doesn't really change the dynamic of the game, especially coming off the bench. I think Nurkic is a really good center that people undershadow as a needle mover. He's actually someone I think could be transplanted on any team in the league and really move the stat sheet. But Robert Covington, he hasn't really looked himself since he's been there. He's still a very good 3-and-D wing. But picking up guys like Dennis Smith Jr., Greg Brown, Nasir Little, Tony Snell, it doesn't do a lot for me. When you look at this roster, I look at a 9th seed, playing playoff team. They're going to have to play their way into the playoffs and hope for the best. But the biggest thing for me, and I think that it was this year that I finally kind of just like gave up on, my aspirations for Dame as a potential, championship winning point guard. I think he's future Hall of Fame in my opinion. This year in the playoffs, how they went out was just sad. No way you should lose to a team like that in the manner you did, just to watch them get swept in the next round. And he even pointed out to it. He's like, there's no reason why, we shouldn't have been more competitive in that series. But there was not a single point in that series where I thought they were going to win. I mean, Dame had to go fucking Super Saiyan to try and force OT, and he still lost. And if you're going to have to put in those kind of efforts, you're never going to win a series. It's similar to Jimmy Butler in the 2020 championships, where he was posted up against the scoreboard, gassed out, and that meme went viral forever. Those kind of games don't win you championships. They'll win you games. That's it. Those are not championship winning games. You need someone that's going to come in and influence the stat sheet, but also be a part of a team that really wants to win and can drive an identity and play that style of basketball that wins rings. And honestly, like, there is no singular way of doing that. There's not one style that can dictate how you win a championship, and we've seen that be proven over the last 20 years with just different eras of hoops. Warriors, Spurs, Heatles, Detroit, Boston, like, they're all different play styles. You just have to identify yours and really hone in on it and find the right people that fit into that play style. But I think with the recent increase in salary cap, there's a lot of players that are chasing money, which is completely understandable. I would do the same thing. But you're getting a lot of people that are just signing free agent contracts and trying to figure out their play style. It doesn't really make sense for me. If you don't really fit the brand of identity that basketball program has, it's hard for me to envision you winning. Now, I look at that with, your team, the Miami Heat. I think picking up Kyle Lowry is one of the best signings of the summer. He fits that identity extremely well, in my opinion. He's a guy who grinds, plays hard, and has an aspiration to win. He'll also be one of the few people on that team who actually has won a ring. and he brings a lot of value to the team. I think that's how smart GMs stay at the top of the league and stay competitive, is by bringing people in who can fit that identity. I think Oladipo coming into your team is a similar cut of that cloth. I think that, how Boston's remained relevant over the last 20 years, consistently making the playoffs, is because they bring in high octane guys that play smart IQ basketball, and they look for that in their draft classes, and they look for that in their free agent signings. I think that, them picking up Dennis Schroeder is a huge sign of that. I loved watching him swat the fuck out of Kyle Lowry the other day in a preseason game. That's just smart basketball. He went up, swung over, saw the cut through, went up for it, contested it, blocked it, and then they were moving in transition. And so for me, when I watch the Trailblazers, I don't really see that. I don't see that energy. I don't see that identity. I don't see that anticipation and movement. And I think that, part of that falls on the shoulders of the coach, but more importantly, it falls on the shoulders of the organization. It's just been long standing that the Trailblazers are just a team that, hoops. It's like if you went to the local YMCA and you saw two, former D1 guys, and then they picked up a bunch of like random dudes off the street. That's the Trailblazers in the league right now, in my opinion. You're going to watch some good hoops, but you're not going to really see them win a lot of games. And that's sad, because I think that they have the right fan base for that, and they have the right guy to lead that franchise. They really just need to build around him in a way that facilitates his talents best. And they haven't done that so far.
I don't think it's very surprising that the franchise hasn't done much for Damian Lillard. They are the ones that drafted Greg Oden over Kevin Durant. They did mismanage Brandon Roy's career and his injury. People forget that was in Portland, and then he had those surgeries. I mean, Brandon Roy without an injury, who's Damian Lillard? Like, dude, Brandon Roy. I mean, oof. When they had LaMarcus Aldridge, like, what were they doing? They would make the playoffs, but they never made any noise. I feel like they always had special talent. They have this eye to get a special talented player, but they don't know how to build a team. Yeah. They know how to draft, but they don't know how to build. I think you touch on it perfectly. A shapeless. I look at this offense, and it's like, okay, Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum are your only two true like high volume scorers. So what's that mean? The rest of the team is defensive players. That's not even like true. Like Larry Nance Jr., I mean, he's a good defender, but he's not known as this defensive force. He's more like he scores a couple points, gets a couple stops, things like that. Dennis Smith Jr. So Damian Lillard comes off the bench. You don't even have like a scoring replacement for him. I mean, it's just a fact that this franchise, it's almost disrespectful for Damian Lillard, to the game of basketball to not have asked for a trade. Because they only get this like limit, like 15 years is nothing. Like it's going to be gone. Like it's already been, I don't know how many years in Curry's career. And I didn't even realize till the other day. I was like, like Stephen Curry's been in the league for forever now. And it feels like just the other day, I was watching him in that orange jersey, the ugly Warriors shit that they used to have, hooping up. So it's like they have this small window to play basketball and win championships. And you have such a talent like Damian Lillard, which you're not going to see a lot of guys that can shoot from 30. Like the confidence Lillard shoots with and where he shoots from every single game is a special talent in within itself. Apart from the fact he makes the shots, the confidence to take those. And he's one of the best point guards in between. Once he comes off the pick and roll, that in between game, in between the mid range and getting to the bucket or getting it to your man, he's one of the best in the league. So you have a guy who's multi-talented and multiple, facets of offense. So you could build a bunch of a bunch of different systems around Damian Lillard. They just don't do anything. They misfits. This is a team. This is the American rejects. Literally, the NBA rejects is on the Portland Trailblazers. These are guys who, pretty much either got traded away because they weren't necessary anymore or weren't needed in their teams. But what could they do? Like, what do you think if Damian Lillard doesn't ask for a trade? Is there anything that Portland can do to even make some noise, to like bring in some help? Because I don't even know who you could trade off this roster.
Nothing they can do. I'm very much.
I've been on this wavelength for 8 months now. They need to blow that team up and reset. There's a ton of draft capital at the Oklahoma Thunder that they could trade for. I would love to see Shai Gilgeous-Alexander next to Dame. And I think that there's a lot of other good pieces at that team right now that could, potentially put Dame in that older vet role and kind of give him free will. and there wouldn't be a lot of high expectations on that team. If they make the playoffs, great. If they don't, great. Like it's something that they could roll out for 2 to 3 years, and he could help bridge that gap. But I just don't see him running a ring. So you might as well go have fun and hoop. Like I think that him and Shai would be like a show. Like that would be a huge show to me. And I think they have the right people in place for some exciting basketball there, because it's like if you're just going to focus on playing exciting basketball, you might as well do it with some younger guys with some energy and have fun. Chris Paul had a ton of fun at OKC from our perspective, and I might be wrong from his perspective. And he's having a ton of fun right now with the Suns with that younger roster. And I think Dame could be, really exciting to watch in that role at OKC if they trade some draft capital and get some right guys, a couple of veterans in there, and really shake things up. But more importantly, I just think that the West is getting stronger. There's a lot of more competition. The Lakers will be healthy this year, hopefully. I think the Warriors are going to be back in that conversation again. You're looking at the Spurs potentially being back in that conversation. The West is just, the Utah. I found out that Hassan Whiteside is now the backup center for the Utah Jazz. That's scary for me. You got to go from one elite rim protector in Rudy Gobert to Hassan Whiteside. Like, who's scoring at the rim in that team? You're gonna have to shoot them out the gym. And then you have, the Suns will be back. You'll see teams like the Timberwolves sort of make some sort of splash. I'm expecting this year now that they're all healthy and there's some fluidity in that organization. But the Mavs are still in the competition. The Clippers will be all right. I think we're going to see a scary year from PG, and we'll see an emergence more from Terrence Mann on that side of the ball in regards to the offensive skill set. But it'll just be tough. Curiously enough, though, I think that we're going to see the next future Dame in this conversation with Luka Doncic. And you and I talked off camera about that, but I think he's in a similar position where, and he's slightly different because I think he's too ball heavy for that team. But if you just pull up his roster, I mean, it's the same shit. Who is he really playing with? Like, Boban is your number one center besides Willie Cauley-Stein. That's garbage. Like, I'm sorry, that's garbage. There's no way you win real basketball games with that. You had to pick up Frank Ntilikina from the Knicks, Reggie Bullock. I think that if Kristaps Porzingis stays healthy, he's one of the best number twos in the league. I think he's a walking bucket, and he showed that in the first couple of games against the Clippers. But outside of that roster is very nonchalant. It's not a very serious roster to me. I mean, love Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr., but that's not going to get the job done. And Dwight Powell and Josh Green, they're role players, but they're not someone that moves the needle at a large scale. And so I'm curious to see how that works out, because I constantly see Luka Doncic in the conversation as one of the best, but it's like, I think his career is going to falter out if they continue working him the way he does, because what is the long-term play here? What's going to be the move that pushes the Mavs from, the perennial Clippers whipping boy to, a conference finals appearance or a championship finals appearance. And right now I don't see that organization doing that, because I think that they've had a history of not building around their star in the past when you look at Dwight Howard. So it'll be curious to me to see how they handle that, but I don't have a lot of high expectations for right now.
I think the Mavericks, they're a similar situation, but I think I wouldn't even say even worse. At least they made an effort, but Kristaps Porzingis hasn't worked out. I think you're right. Luka Doncic does have a play style where he does require the ball a lot, but I think at the same time, I think Luka Doncic's stats could be even better. Like, look at what he does with what he has. Imagine what he could do if they were better. Like, a simple – I'm just trying to think, like, he averaged 27, 8, and 8, right? So he could probably up those assists if you had another really good scorer next to you. Like, you have Tim Hardaway Jr., but like you said, it doesn't – nobody jumps out of either the Mavericks or the Portland Trailblazers roster and tells me, yo, this is a big difference and they're going to make a big change, which is why these players force their trades out. With Luka, I think it's a little different. He's a little younger. His play style is a lot different than a lot of players in the league because he plays so slow and he's so unathletic that I don't think injuries long-term will be a problem for him. I think if anybody's going to have good knees, it's going to be Luka Doncic and Dirk Nowitzki, because those guys move very
super
slow.
slow.
But they have super slow, but they have a super deadly game. It's just it's pure finesse, which is that European style of basketball. So
I think
Luka
the
has a
reason why
long.
I think the reason why Luka,
you say that is because Luka has this, and it's something I've picked up in my own game. I started trying to mirror, but his ability to switch speeds is what makes Luka so elusive. When you can go from really fast to really slow to medium fast to really fast to somewhat slow to medium slow to slow, and like all in a 30-second span, it makes it hard to guard because you don't know how to, that quick, change that can throw you off, and then all of a sudden you're like going too fast and he slows down and now you've flown past him, and so it makes him very slippery.
Yeah, you see that change of speed is a good point because like most players attack the basket and they'll take an explosive step. Even me, I take an explosive step and then I take off towards the basket full speed. But most players nowadays, especially Luka Doncic, he'll like slow down and then he'll maneuver his way instead of like if he's going baseline, he'll maneuver towards the middle of the paint, looking for an open little fadeaway or a floater, things like that. Luka's very smart at avoiding contact. I think that's why he's going to have a nice long career. I think Luka I would argue is going to have the better career than Damian Lillard, just in a sense that I think Luka has a skill set that contributes to a championship, by himself. If there was a guy that could do it by himself, I feel Luka holds that skill set. And we're talking about just players in the NBA right now, not all time. So I guess my question would be, if you are Luka Doncic, are you asking for a trade? Because now you have a new coach. Now, like, it's not Rick Carlisle anymore. We're going to do Jason Kidd, who is at best a mediocre coach. I mean, what's the highlight of Kidd's career? Hey, hit me. And then they hit him with the little water. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
That timeout incident. So that's, I don't know. It's very difficult because Luka Doncic does have the skill set to win a championship, like Damian Lillard, but they don't have the team around them, and it's very frustrating to watch somebody so skilled not have another, a solid number two. If they trade away Kristaps Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr., because you're gonna have to, and maybe get him another solid player, I think we could see the Mavericks make a little bit more noise. I mean, they did what they could. They did what they could in the playoffs with what they had. Had Luka maybe had a little bit more help, they probably would have, gotten past the first round.
Who's going there, though?
let's have a real conversation.
Who would want to go to the Mavs?
I think Mark Cuban is the best owner in the league, hands down. As far as being a player's owner, I think Mark Cuban expresses very much that he loves his players and he loves his team. Now, I don't know why, though, because people are willing to go to the Houston Rockets and just kind of like, I feel if people were willing to give up their entire basketball career and their pride to go play with James Harden, somebody's going to give up their pride to go play with Luka Doncic. I mean,
yeah.
You said that like a lot of guys gave up years. Eric Gordon gave up years of his career of great shooting and, still being able to attack the basket, and PJ Tucker as well being able to shoot and stuff to watch James Harden dribble in a corner. Chris Paul gave up like 2 years of his career. So it's like, I think you could see it, but I think the better question is Mark Cuban ready to break the bank? Because I think that's what's going to be, that's what's necessary is you're going to have to really like dig in and lose on the Mavs like a year or two and really get yourself some true talent, because you have a once in a lifetime player. I mean, I know a lot of people are high on Zion. I'm much higher on Luka and the length of his career, injury free, things like that, than I am on Zion, skill and everything.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think
that Cuban is a dedicated owner. He's very animated. He's very emotional about his team, but I don't know how willing he is to really go above and beyond, similar to what the Warriors have done and the Lakers have done or the Knicks have done, whoever have done to really pay players and bring in talent. I don't know why I said the Knicks there. Knicks are excluded from that conversation, but it's just tough.
It'll be curious to see, but I think
that if anyone's going to hopefully figure it out, it'll be Cuban. I do think the one thing we need to keep an eye on is those end of the season reports about Luka's ego and attitude.
That's going to be tough. If Luka is,
is that rumored to be, kind of asshole player, a superstar diva, but he keeps it hidden very well behind the scenes. I think that is going to rub people the wrong way long term. But at the same time, like what superstar doesn't have a little ego? So I'm rocking with Luka regardless.
I actually have a fantastic counter to that. Tell me somebody on the Mavericks that could look at Luka and even fuck with him. I mean, I bet Luka walks around like, you guys didn't have me. Where the fuck would you guys be? Luka probably looks around and just thinks to himself, you'd be overseas. You'd be somewhere else. You'd be one of LeBron's pickups. Like, Luka Doncic should have that attitude. I think he is that much better than the skill gap between McCollum and Lillard and Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis is super, super, super like, it's just a big gap.
It reminds me of
that segment that came out during what was it? It was with Kobe, and he was like, yeah, Kobe only showed up to practice so he could tell everybody he won't miss them when they get traded. He's like, I want to see you guys one last time before you get traded. Because it's like, these guys are bums. Like, why are you playing with me? We're not in the same whisper of talent. Like, you're awful. Like, get the fuck out of here. And so for me, it'll be one of those things where you have to find those dogs out there that can really hoop and get to the bucket with him. And right now, you're not doing that. They also just don't draft well. That's the one thing that people don't pay attention to is the Mavs are not known for their drafting, which is a crime.
Yeah, I know. And it sucks because they always make, especially since they always build this. If you think about it, they always build like a consistent little team. They're never the worst and they'll never just like miss the playoffs. They'll like slightly miss the playoffs. So they're always going to get like a middle of the pack. So you have to have some real talent in that scouting program to be able to catch somebody in the middle of the draft because middle of the draft guys nowadays aren't turning out to be superstars. Pat, like before the 15th pick is a really good diamond in the rough. After the 15th pick, your chances drop significantly to pick a player up that's going to make a real impact. But do you think even if you got Kristaps Porzingis and I'm trying to think. I don't even know who you could get on the Mavericks right now because I don't know what you're going to get for Porzingis. Because if they called Miami, for example, I might consider giving you like the two-way players and a couple like little espresso big face coffee machines. Other than that, I don't want Kristaps Porzingis. To be honest, his play has been very inconsistent. His attitude doesn't seem like he's like his body language and attitude doesn't seem like he's always really like interested on the floor. So clearly he wants to move. There's just nowhere to move Kristaps Porzingis. The only thing you can do is move Porzingis and Tim Hardaway Jr., which then you're taking away the only two tools that Luka ever had in the past 2 years. The Portland Trailblazers and the Luka Doncic situation is like very, very like intriguing because it shows you poverty franchises. Like it shows you the difference in ownership and the difference in leadership, organization, structure, in general, just like not just in NBA, but just in life in general. You don't got structure. You don't got shit. You could have the best. Think about it, they have 2 top 5 talents, players that they probably won't pick up like ever again. And they have no urgency whatsoever to go out of their way and make some real moves to give them superstars. So it's like you're not even grateful for the talent you have next to you. So, if anything, Damian Lillard, they should just treat him to the Timberwolves and call it a day.
Get those picks. Get some top picks. Reset the books.
Dude, to go to OKC, that's tough.
That'd be a fun
little trip.
It'd be fun, but think about it. They have an even worse team, man.
Nah, it'd be fun. Dame and Shai.
Dude,
look at
listen,
that.
all respect. All respect to all NBA players, but as soon as Shai Gilgeous and Damian Lillard are not on the floor, I'm turning my TV off, bro. Like, there's nobody to watch.
Luka Dorker hold it down. They got some nice dudes. That white boy they drafted this season is nice. And that 7-footer.
Oh, Josh Giddey. I like Josh Giddey. Yeah, he's good.
And
but
then,
it's like
what's Luke Port? What's his name? Like the white tall dude. Jelly, just laid.
Oh, Alex Pachapada. Some long ass name. Hold on.
Yeah.
Do I have it? I don't have the Thunder's roster here, but it's like Alex Pachapada. He's some like, yeah, they have pieces, but it's like, bro, Damian Lillard, I think that he only has a handful of teams that get traded to. Luka Doncic, I don't think you could pick up a package. Like his age, his skill set, there's no trade package you could do to get Luka, so he's stuck in Dallas. I think Damian isn't.
So I actually disagree with you on KP.
I just want to put that in real quick. I think he, when healthy, is a great asset. It's just his injury concerns that to take him away. And obviously, there is his attitude problems. I say they see out his contract. I don't think you're going to have a high trade value for him on the market. So you might as well have him as an asset on your team. The thing for me is I would love to see a Robert Covington on the Mavericks because I do think they're one of those teams that's similar to Dame, doesn't have an identity. And Robert can bring you that 3-and-D. I'm a very big fan of you need a solid wing player to win championships. I don't know if you can name a team that didn't have a solid wing player that's won a chip in the last 30 years. And so for me, it's Luka and then KP, and then the rest of the team is non-existent. So I think if you bring a bona fide third and fourth option, that's kind of like a solid role player, that'll really take things to the next level. Someone that you can rely on to get, 10 points, 8 rebounds, and like 3 assists a game. Moves the needle for me because you don't really need someone that scores. You just need someone that can score, when Luka isn't, able to get it going. And that was the one problem for me is that Luka's a great first half player in the playoffs, but he fades when the fourth quarter comes around. So you need someone that can come in and step up and really facilitate when Luka's, tired because he's, pretty much playing high school ball at some points, or if he's, at the point where he's getting, different looks from the coaches, whether they're switching up who slides and who switches and on rotations, or, if they're setting a double as soon as he picks up his dribble around the 3-point line. You need someone that he can, sort of outlet to that's not KP, because KP, his play style isn't really iso ball, but you need someone who can find their own shot or hit a 3 when open off the double team. But we'll see how that plays out over the next season, because I do think there will be some blockbuster trades. Someone that I think we should keep an eye out for potentially being traded is Chris Paul.
That's interesting. Why? Why do you think Chris Paul is going to get traded? I'm interested in that.
I don't think that the Suns
will be in the same conversation they were in last year. I think they'll slip to a 6th seed. And I think that there will be some concerns over long-term vision on the team. We've already heard that the Suns aren't willing to offer DeAndre Ayton a max contract, which is a mistake in my opinion. And with the contract Chris Paul just signed this year, his contract is very tradable. It's not crazy. I think a lot of people were blown away by how much money he signed for, but some of his caliber and skill set, there will be a lot of teams come middle of the season that are looking for a bona fide vet. And I think Chris Paul brings that edge to a team. We'd already heard, 2 years ago that the Bucks were looking at signing Chris Paul. Obviously, they have Drew Hill now. I think a lot of teams are going to get exposed for their point guards this year, and they'll begin looking at, Chris Paul's contract. And depending on what situation the Suns are in the middle of the season, depending on how DeAndre Ayton plays, which I expect him to do well this year in his role next to Devin Booker when healthy, I think that Chris Paul's contract is very tradable, and he's someone that team should keep an eye out for a potential mid-level trade package.
Okay,
imagine Chris Paul on the
76ers. You sent Ben Simmons to the Suns. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, no, Chris Paul on any roster, he improves any roster. And I actually was hoping that for whatever reason, instead of Kyle Lowry, we would get Chris Paul. And I know you did mention that having Kyle Lowry on the bench gives us a champion. Just so you don't forget, we have a 3-time champion named Udonis Haslem on the bench. We don't need this championship pedigree that you're talking about. Okay, we got a 3-time champion OG on the streets and in the league. So
4 minutes like Steven out there.
He's gonna come right back. That's crazy. Udonis Haslem. Actually, the funny part is now I don't have any proof because I don't be at these parks and stuff, like he has security and stuff. But rumors are UD can still hoop. He's old, so they don't want to play him. But the rumors are that UD can still get the buckets and fuck shit up in Miami Heat practice, because I know some of the credentialed people that go to the practices and stuff, and you can't really film everything, but they get to watch everything. Yeah. And Udonis Haslem is Bam Adebayo's, he's one of the guys that's helped Bam Adebayo develop the most, which is crazy to think about. UD being a big contributor to Bam's growth, just because, Udonis Haslem was never had that Bam skill set. But there he is. Moving on, you did mention a good point about the Milwaukee Bucks. So do you think the Milwaukee Bucks will repeat this season?
They will be in the conference finals this year.
They will make the conference finals?
Yes. I don't know if they'll make it back to the finals.
Depending on who is healthy, because I think that the only reason why they got to the finals is Kyrie went down injured. Otherwise, I think that Bucks series against the Nets would have been very, very different. I do think Giannis developing a three-point shot in a pull-up range is absolutely terrifying for anyone guarding him this season. I think that someone said it best on Twitter. Giannis won a ring and added new skills to his skill set. He's no longer chasing championships because he's got it now. He's chasing ghosts. And when people start chasing ghosts is when they get in their like spooky bag. They start doing things that you ain't ever see him do before. You might see him start, tween, like crossing dudes up at the 3-point line. His bag might get a little bigger. Like he might just go crazy on people because he's like, I got that ring. I broke that camel's back. He has that pressure off of him. No one can now say he's not a winner. He's now a defensive player of the year, 2-time MVP, finals MVP, NBA champion, and arguably a top 50 player ever. So now he can just have fun with it. There's no longer that he has to win to prove himself mentality. He kind of proved himself this year. So now he's just going to go out there. And it's when hoopers start having fun is when hoopers get really scary. Like when LeBron won his first ring, he just started having fun. And that's when his bag got crazy. Like he started going crazy at the Heat and at the Cavs. When Kevin Durant won his first rings, I could see a change in his game. It was just like, it was always smooth. But then he started going out there and he's like, this is a walkthrough for me. He's like, I'm here to just, put on a show and enjoy myself. And if Giannis approaches that level, I think it's a scary, scary situation for the league. And it'll allow Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday and all these other players to really, free themselves up with that responsibility and just have fun with it. But I think they can go back to the conference finals. Absolutely.
I agree/disagree only because I disagree with the point about the Brooklyn Nets. Last year in the playoffs, I do think Kyrie going down plays a big impact, but I do think that being up 2-0 and only having to win 2 games and losing 4 after is more, I think. Also, notice we haven't seen the Nets. We've only seen them play 13 games together, that trio, and their record isn't, the craziest. So the 3 of them being together was never really guaranteed to win because they've never really played together like on the floor. I actually didn't know about this, but in that, what was it? It was 72 last year, right? 72 games. They only played 13 of them together, including the playoffs, that the 3 of them were on the floor. And they didn't even play full games because those games include the games that, one of them got injured or whatnot.
Yeah.
I think defensively, the Brooklyn Nets wouldn't have been able to handle the Bucks because the Bucks, I think that's what won them the championship, essentially is losing those 2 games. Then Mike Budenholzer doing the one thing he's never done, which is make adjustments and make crucial adjustments in the middle of a game. He started doing that, but defensively, to the Nets and to the Phoenix Suns, let's not forget they came back from 2 down 2-0 series. But I think they have a good chance of repeating. This is not hometown bias. It's just legitimately what I think. I think the Miami Heat have taken a piece of the Bucks and built a very, very defensive front team. They don't have a lot of egos, a lot of superstars. So I think they're going to be they're probably going to make the conference finals against the Nets or the Bucks. Either one, I don't care. But the Bucks will make
shooting though.
What do you mean? Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, Kyle Lowry.
Tyler Hero's not getting it done.
Duncan Robinson is not getting it done.
Hold up. Jason Tatum made the Eastern Conference Finals in his rookie year.
Yeah.
Shit the bed his second year and dogged his third year. Donovan Mitchell dominated his first year, shit the bed his second year. Everybody has a sophomore slump. Like, what did John Moran do last year?
Relax.
He had a good year last year.
He had a good year, but it's like the second year of an NBA player is always it's always funky.
It's a figure out year.
That doesn't take away though from Tyler Hero, his ability to shoot, PJ Tucker's ability to shoot. We have Marcus Morris on the bench. I can't ever pronounce his name. Ahmed Yurtseven is like this new center guy we got from I forgot where, but he can shoot as well. I mean, we have shooters on the roster now. As far as consistent shooters, our superstar Jimmy Butler is not a consistent shooter. That's a problem, but we'll see that in the future. But the Bucks together, And I think the roster, especially adding Rodney Hood and George Hill shoots his best 3-point percentage with the Milwaukee Bucks, which is like 40 something percent, which is ridiculous. And he's a good 3-and-D guy. So they basically signed a veteran Drew Holiday to come on the bench and then added Rodney Hood with extra scoring. And now they also have Dante DiVincenzo coming back with Semi Ojale. I really like this roster. I think the Bucks can repeat. It's not will they, it's can they. I think they can repeat. Will they repeat? My chances are I think they have like a 35% chance to win the championship again.
Completely agree. One final point
before I hop off. You actually hit on it right on the head. Dante DiVincenzo is such an underrated role player on that team. He brings energy. He brings defensive side. He's a slasher. He's athletic. He's just one of those. He's like one of those guys where, like, whenever you hear a sports commentator talk about a white hooper, they're just like, he's gritty. He works hard. He does everything around the ball. But, like, he's legitimately one of those guys where, like, he does all of that, but he actually makes it matter. Like, he's not someone who, like, anytime I hear that from a commentator, I'm like, oh, that dude's ass. He just, like, tries really hard. But, like, Dante DiVincenzo, like, legitimately tries really hard, and he's actually really good. And so I think that if we get back a healthy DiVincenzo and he takes that next year jump even more so, it's scary. It's scary for everyone in the league for that team.
Scary to consider. He didn't participate in the playoffs, so he wasn't part of that campaign. Yeah, he got injured early, so we didn't even get to see the Bucks at full power. Like, no team was fully in. Of course, Dante DiVincenzo isn't a Kyrie Irving, but players have roles and they have impacts on the team. And Dante DiVincenzo has a positive defensive impact and a positive offensive impact. So it's like, losing him was kind of a big bullet, but it's going to be interesting to see the new additions plus Dante DiVincenzo coming back. I think the Bucks have a good chance. I think the NBA as a whole, everybody's pretty much rejuvenated, looking for redemption. Everybody's trying to prove something out here this season. I'm excited. I can't wait to see. Hopefully, I predicted. I don't know if you saw last episode. I predicted that your Lakers, your adjacent fan Lakers, and my Heat will meet in the finals again after 2020, and you guys will take the globe again. But yeah, that's my prediction. Excited for this next season. Thank you very much for hopping on the show. We do appreciate it. And yeah, everybody, as always, remember, just hoops.
Yes, sir.